to be joining us. I
would move that forward and get it over with.
That you do that before. So we have under old business, you have the actually he's under old business, but I would do that before the interpretation of the zoning regulations, just because
we have to do the public, do we have to do the public hearing before?
Yes.
Okay, so it's the public hearing, and then we'll move him forward.
Yep.
Okay.
Because we have some folks that'll be logging in just to make sure that the public hearing is being continued.
Right.
And then we have 2 items to add under new business.
Are those receipt motions mostly?
They are not, actually. One is just to relate to the affordable housing plan, just to say yes, we agree with a special hearing, that public hearing date that has been set by the town council for June 23rd. Our plan is to have you do a joint meeting with the council on that, since it affects both agencies. And then the second one is an interpretation that just came up today as I was reviewing zoning permits. So
okay.
I said, why not? We'll just throw it on.
Throw it on the table. We got lots on the table. Ken, good to see you. Katie, hi Katie. John, someone has a feedback buzz now. That you, Binu? No. Yes, that was you.
I muted mine at the same time.
Okay.
Nope. Okay.
Now it's too quiet.
It wasn't until you started talking.
All right.
You can't have it both ways, Paul.
I just can't have it. No. So the governor hasn't given any direction on meetings for the future. He's leaving it up to the towns?
I don't know. So I will, I think the CDC's recommendation next, I don't know what bearing the CDC's announcement last week is going to have. So the executive orders do expire this week. I had heard from an attorney that it sounded like they might extend the virtual meetings until June or July. But I don't know. And if last month is any indication, the email that I saw from the governor's office was 10:05 p.m. when it expired at midnight. So I'm not anticipating a whole lot of lead time to know what we are doing.
Right.
So, which is why you have some very long, the continuation motion this evening is fairly long, because we essentially have 3 options that we've put in. One is, if we're back to in-person meetings with town council chambers, or if needed for capacity, the Mansfield Middle School. And I'll be honest, I have not even checked to see if I'm assuming that facility is open and available because of COVID, but.
Oh, so we would be on the stage and then people would be sitting.
Potentially, if we need, it's not ideal because it's not where our video system is. I've had conversations with the IT director about how we would handle that, but obviously council chambers is preferred, but we don't know what social distancing rules and other things will be in place. And, social distancing with the council chambers, you're not going to get many folks in there.
No.
So
that might be fun to be on the stage for a while.
I'm glad we can make things fun for you, Paul.
Anything better, it'd be better than this. Even being on a stage.
I kind of
This
hope
conference will now be recorded.
that they do allow us to have virtual meetings. So like Hall, who only can attend by video, can attend. It just would be nice. I've actually person seems strange after 2 years, but it would just be nice to see him.
Yeah, that's right.
There are definitely benefits to the virtual format. I will say from a staff perspective, we've seen some drafts of legislation that talk about mandating hybrid meetings. In other words, we would have to provide for both in-person and virtual. From a staff perspective, that's running 2 meetings at one time. And that is not easy, and there's a lot of potential for issues with that. Not to mention, I have not yet figured out how we do a site walk and have a virtual site walk simultaneously. So I don't know how we would even accomplish such a thing. All I know is that the likelihood of me tripping in the woods would probably increase exponentially.
You have to hold your phone up above your head.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, as one that has a hard time driving after dark, and I know I only live 1.5 miles away from the town hall, I like the Zoom meetings. It allows me to be here.
Yeah. Now, there are advantages.
And I'm a scary driver. You probably don't want me on the road after dark.
I can put you in the back seat.
Oh, that sounds good. How come not the front seat?
Carpooling, I love it. Sustainability and carpooling. Thank you,
I have a
Dorian.
brother-in-law that will not go on highways. I put him in the back seat and give him a book.
Oh, sounds good. I'll take you up on that, Dorian.
All right.
Okay, the time has arrived. I call to order the May 17th meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission at 6:30 p.m. And Linda, you're doing the roll, right?
Yep. Accorsi.
Okay.
Here.
Aho.
Here.
Chandy.
Chandy present.
Cooley. Cotton.
Here.
Bertoni.
Tony here.
Hall. Plant.
Here.
Ron.
Ron here.
DeVivo.
DeVivo here.
And Ward. I saw Vera a few seconds ago, but she seems to have disappeared.
She'll probably arrive at some point.
Oh,
yeah, there she is.
She's arriving now.
Yes.
Vera, you're here. So we
say here.
So with 2 absent members, Mr. Chair, may I presume that both alternates DeVivo and Ward are seated for Cooley and Hall this evening?
That is correct. Yes. And we have minutes from May 3rd. That long meeting.
I'll move. Vera Ward moves that we accept them as presented. Good job done.
Moved by Ward.
Second by Chandy.
Second by Chandy. Ken, did you get a chance to listen?
In its entirety, Mr. Chairman.
In its entirety, all right. Not an easy task. But you were able to do it in more than one sitting, I bet.
I was.
Oh, that's cheating.
Made it tolerable.
All right.
I commend all of you on your stamina.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, passes unanimously. I understand that Linda has a couple of extra motions since we don't have much to do today.
I do. With your public hearing being since we're going to continue that this evening, A couple of items came up, and so I'm going to share my screen here and put the motion up for folks.
So this would be a motion to add it to our agenda, right?
Yes, 2 items under new business.
Okay.
I can put it up.
Okay.
This is move to add affordable housing plan to the agenda as item B under new business and interpretation of Article 9, Section D, period 3, period A, extension, or enlargement of existing residential non-conforming uses to the agenda as item C under new business.
Moved by Plant,
Second, Ward.
second by Ward. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
All right. So you do have zoning agent reports from Jolene. I did tell her she did not need to attend this evening. She is in a week-long training along with Jennifer, at the end of which is an exam. So they are studying these weeknight evenings. But if anyone has any questions for Jolene, I would be happy to pass them on to her.
Okay.
All right.
If there are none, then
I
we
have
can
one
open it.
question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Katie.
What is illegal use? Is it that it's zoned for something and they're trying to do something else there?
Usually, and I'm assuming, can you tell me which report you're referring to, just so I can look at it? And
I think it was pending zoning violations.
okay.
There's a couple that have said illegal.
So our system for violations and that we track, that's the way it's framed. So essentially, it means that we're investigating a use that is not permitted in that zoning district. So, we've either received a complaint or, through investigation, that's being looked at. So, you can see most of the ones that we tend to get just looking at this list seem to be junkyards, but we do have some where, we again, either through a neighborhood complaint or through other investigation, we find something which looks like someone is doing something that's not permitted in the zoning district. And so that's why we have illegal use ultimately. So for example, there it says under investigation. That means typically under investigation means we haven't made a final determination. So we're looking into that. We're doing our research. And then, once we get to the point where if we believe that it actually is not permitted, then we move on to, okay, we start with the progressive enforcement, warning letters, notices of violation, cease and desist, citations, etc.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, we can open the public hearing. Linda, do you want to read the
Yes, I
required
will.
words?
Well, I probably will dispense with most of that, other than to note,
Please
so
do.
the public hearing for the special permit application of Capstone Collegiate Communities LLC and J.E. Shepherd Company, applicants, and DDS Associates LLC and Benjamin Brown owners for a 358-unit multifamily residential development. The bill is at Four Corners at 1621 Storrs Road and Middle Turnpike. Assessor's parcel IDs 9.23.1, 9.23.7, and 9.23.8. So this hearing was opened on April 19th, as you recall, and continued to this evening. As noted on the agenda, the applicant has requested that we open this hearing and immediately continue it to a special meeting as they're continuing to respond to staff and consultant comments. We did attach a letter from the applicant, so we do need to call the roll and note the time of the opening, and then we'll move to a continuation motion.
Now, if we don't know the date of the special meeting, does that matter? Can we just move it to a date uncertain?
No. So we really need to iron out the date tonight. Otherwise, we need to renotice everything.
Okay, all right. So we'll just decide between ourselves what date we want. Okay.
So and we'll go through those dates, but the first thing we need to do is call the roll for the hearing and then note the time that we're opening. So, Accorsi.
Accorsi here.
Aho,
Here.
Chandy,
Chandy present.
Cotton,
Here.
Bertoni,
Here.
Plant,
Plant here.
Ron,
Here.
DeVivo, Ward.
Ward present.
And just for the record, I did not call the names of members Hall and Cooley as they are absent. So, Mr. Chair, again, as was the beginning of the meeting, I presume that both of the
DeVivo
alternates-
present.
All right. So with that, the hearing, I believe, Mr. Chair, is open at 6:38 p.m.
Okay, so now we need to discuss a date for a special.
Yeah.
Did the poll reveal a date?
So the poll was completed by 5 members, and then Ken had gotten back to me with one date that worked best for him. Sadly, Ken, it is not the only date that the 5 members that responded agreed on. So looking at the poll, the best day for folks is Wednesday, June 2nd at 6:30. So for those of you who are not able to complete that poll today for a special meeting, can you confirm that date would work for you? And if not, we'll try and find one that works for everyone. I will say that the dates that you were given were based on 2 factors. One is availability of our broadcast system, which is our first priority, and the second, the dates were then further narrowed down by the applicant team in terms of their availability.
Okay, so how many people can come on the 2nd? I think we have a quorum for the 2nd.
Okay.
Good.
All right. So it looks like, was that everybody other than Cotton that I saw? So Cotton, you cannot attend on the 2nd.
I cannot attend on the 2nd.
Okay. But everyone else, I think I caught everyone else with their hand up saying, yes, that's okay. So if that works, I apologize, Carlita. The reason for it, just so everyone is aware, the reason that we're recommending a special meeting, and I did talk to the chair about this, is when we look at your agenda for the next several weeks, on June 7th, you have the continuation of the Agbotic hearing, plus a public hearing on the proposed moratorium on cannabis establishments. On June 21st, you have a hearing on a zoning map amendment, as well as on zoning regulation changes. And then I'm assuming if Agbotic doesn't close, it would get continued to that night. I'm not saying it's not going to close. I'm just saying if. And then July 6th, you have a special permit on another large application. So talking to the chair, we thought it was better to try and continue this to a special meeting where that's the only thing on your agenda for the evening.
Now, the idea being to sort of even out the number of hours that we have to work in a given night.
Yes. So if that date works, I'm going to put a motion, and I apologize again. This is going to be a lengthy motion. And that is mainly due to the fact that, as the chair was asking before the meeting, we are not sure when we will be going back to in-person meetings. So we are really trying to cover all bases with this motion.
Oh, that's not a long motion. Okay, who'd like to put that forward? We've seen worse. Go ahead, Sarah. Yeah.
Accorsi moves to adjourn the public hearing on the special permit application of Capstone Collegiate Communities, LLC, and J.E. Shepherd Company for a multifamily residential development, PZC file 1369, to a special meeting to be held on June 2nd, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. If the town has returned to in-person meetings, the hearing will be held at the Town Hall, Council Chamber at 4 South Eagleville Road, or if needed for capacity reasons, the auditorium at the Mansfield Middle School, 205 Spring Hill Road. The location will be listed on the meeting agenda. Otherwise, the hearing will be held virtually, and information on how to join the virtual meeting will be included on the meeting agenda.
Moved by Accorsi,
Second. Ward.
second by Ward. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed unanimously.
Aye.
Okay, we finished several pages of the agenda.
You did. Thank you very much. And unfortunately, I think we were going to move an old business item up on the agenda, and the applicant for that item was present, but he seems to have left the meeting. So I'm not sure. Jen, do you want to try and contact Ron to see if he was having connection issues? Okay. So Jen has given us the thumbs up. She's going to contact Mr. Beebe to see if he's having issues connecting into the meeting.
Well, in the meantime, we can take note of the fact that the special permit application of Capstone Collegiate Communities is tabled. The special permit application for Agbotic Greenhouse is tabled. If Mr. Beebe's not available, we could look at the drive-through services interpretation.
So that is an item that was on your agenda for June 7th, and as you recall, we tabled it quite simply due to time. At that point, you had been present for several hours. So you do have my agenda item report on this, and the question that has been asked is whether a drive-up window where you, Mr. Beebe is here, so it looks like, do you want me to continue with this, or do you want to put that on hold and
let's see if we can, Mr. Beebe, are you available right now? If you are, we can take up your issue.
Ron, you can turn your camera on and unmute yourself at this point.
Yes.
Hi, Ron.
Hi.
Okay.
You
We
hear
can't
now?
see you, but we can hear you.
Okay, that's fine.
So with that, I'm going to turn it, since Jen attended this evening, I'm going to turn this over to Jen to explain what the request is.
So some of you are on the sidewalk. I know Luann and Vera. Oh, Vera, I think wants to say something.
Recuse myself. I'm sorry.
It's okay. So Vera would like to recuse herself, which is fine. So we had John DeVivo, Paul Aho, and Luann, as well as John DeVivo. Yes. So anyways, Mr. Beebe, when in November, the Conservation Commission was conducting a routine monitoring of the conservation easement that was associated with the Gifford Estates subdivision. And when we did look at that, when we were doing the conservation easement monitoring, we noticed that a road had been put in through the conservation easement, in addition to that included a wetland crossing. In addition, we noticed evidence of hunting on the other properties that are associated with the conservation easement. So just to back up, the conservation easement is about 14.5 acres, and it is in the back of 4 acres associated with this subdivision. There was hunting evidenced on 2 of the lots. We contacted them. They agreed not to allow hunting. And then we contacted Mr. Beebe because the road heading across the conservation easement is on his property. My understanding is that today Mr. Beebe is requesting in addition to the road, hunting on the easement. So with that, I think we have, there are 2 motions. You probably want to discuss what you saw. There are 2 motions. Either you decide that he would be allowed to put that road in, and then he'd have to go back to the wetlands agency and get a wetlands approval for the crossing, or he would have to go to the wetlands agency to restore the crossing and remove the road. And then the hunting issue would be a separate issue. So
now, is it your understanding that the road or path has been in there for 20 years?
No, the road was not there when the conservation easement was accepted by the town. It was installed after Mr. Beebe could probably tell us when.
Okay.
Yeah.
I bought the property in '96. There was no path there. I installed the path probably 5 years later. It's been in there for over 20 years. According to the conservation easement, you can use it as a farm road. And my dad, when he was alive, we took his license away when he was 90 years old, and he used to drive his tractor over to our house maybe every 8 weeks, just so I knew he had a place to go. Since he died 15 years ago, I believe. And I use the path as, there's no, I don't personally hunt. My neighbor's son-in-law, Greg Paddock's son, used it for hunting, and my sister's son-in-law used it for hunting. They only deer hunt, and the more deer they kill, I'm happy to be, because they eat our flowers, rhododendrons, and everything. So I personally never hunted in my life, so it's I guess it would be your call. I've just asked that. I didn't realize you couldn't hunt on the conservation easement, but now I'm asking. They said you could, possibly by asking. So it wouldn't be for me. It'd be for just family.
So, well, let's start with the hunting issue first, and then move back to the road issue. As far as I'm concerned, Mansfield's overrun with deer. I don't know. I'd be inclined to allow hunting if it's requested, and it is a request of the PZC. And any comments on that hunting issue?
I think it's going to be more than deer the way they're coming now. Bear and moose. So.
Okay.
And I do have grandchildren that live over on the other side that go into the middle school, so it's possible they might go use that road to walk over to the middle school, because I wouldn't want them on 195. So.
Okay. For commission members, do you have any opinions on the hunting portion of this?
And I have
Yeah, go ahead, Katie.
My question is how close is it to people and houses? And if somebody's hunting in there, can a stray shot actually, if somebody's walking there, say in the fall, could there be a problem?
I guess it could be an accident anywhere. I don't know how far a bullet goes, so I was in the Army. I served there, but that was a different kind of ammunition. So I owned the 22 acres after the 9 acres I own here at this house for the Milton Beebe and Sons construction. So they are bought. So, and there is a big hill that goes up to the business in front of that by the firehouse. So most people that hunt here are very, very careful.
Sarah, did you have a comment?
I actually just had a question about what the policy is on hunting in general. I don't know anything about that. So Linda or Jennifer.
So hunting, the town does not regulate hunting. We do not permit hunting on town-owned properties. And our feeling is we don't know our boundaries well enough, but this is not town property. This is a conservation that the town owns. So anyone who hunts would have to comply with deep regulations. Because you have a conservation easement, you could allow certain types of hunting, like you could allow only bow hunting. You could allow, you have all stipulations, and you can actually condition approval, because this is you're the ones who grant this approval. I think if you are going to allow hunting, I might recommend that you refer this out to the Conservation Commission and or our town attorney, just to get their opinion. I think just.
Okay, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. Yeah. We can punt that one and look at it later.
I don't think I think hunting is, it's really not for me, but I think it can be done safely. It's just a matter of how are we going to enforce that it's done safely? It gets a little
Okay.
complicated, but I think let's refer to
Let's
conservation.
send that out for comment to the
Yep.
Conservation Commission.
I want to remind you, nobody's allowed on the conservation easement except me.
Right, there's no public access. That is correct.
Okay. Okay, so let's switch to talking about the road, which was put in after the conservation easement was done, right, Jennifer?
Yep.
Even though
So-
that was 20 years ago.
The conservation easement reads that, and you have that as part of your packet, that the general topography of the landscape shall be maintained in its present condition, and that no topographic changes shall be made without the written approval of said Mansfield Planning and Zoning Commission. And topographic changes shall include, without exclusion, filling, excavation, removing topsoil and sand, gravel, rocks, minerals, building road, or altering natural or existing water courses or drainage. So let's see. And then down on subsection 8, it says no vehicles except farm vehicles shall be used on said property without the consent of the Mansfield Planning and Zoning Commission. So the way the conservation easement reads is that he has to come for permission to make any topographic changes or any changes to the water course, and that no vehicles except for farm vehicles are allowed on the conservation easement. Both, you can grant permission from my read of the conservation easement to both these conditions of the easement.
I don't, I didn't alter the water course. I only put a little 8-inch pipe in, and we just filled on top of a foot so I wouldn't be muddy. I didn't remove any topsoil. I also walked this property with Grant Meisler when we did it, and he saw no problem. I didn't remove the topsoil. I don't know. I don't see anything wrong with it. It's just a nice little path over to my business, and they don't drive motorcycles, mini bikes. I have a Gator. I drive my lawnmower over there maybe every 3 or 4 weeks to get some gas. Once in a while, I mow the lawn over there if nobody's mowing it.
So in this case, we have a clear violation of the rules, but we have several alternatives for dealing with it. We could ignore it. We could ask for a retroactive. Well, he's asking for permission now for the road, right?
He's asking for retroactive permission.
It seems like overkill to me to remove the road at this point.
Thank you.
I don't know. What I'd like to hear from other commission members. Yeah, go ahead, Bina.
I agree that it's now too late to try and rectify by removing the road, but to dissuade people from, continuing such behavior, we need to try and. Is there some penalty or something that we could do?
I guess the penalty would be to have to remove the road.
We don't have a citation ordinance or anything like that, like we do for wetlands or zoning.
So, and I think, I think Jen can say this a little bit better. One of the challenges we have is I'm going to go out on a limb here, Jen, thousands of acres of conservation easements in town. So monitoring those, it is a challenge. It's something that the Conservation Commission is tasked with, and this is the process they've started. And monitoring is what turns this up. But I think it's going to take us years probably to monitor all of the easements. I don't know if there is a way to create penalties. That's a legal question for our town attorney. Again, from a zoning standpoint, I don't think this is a zoning violation. I'd have to talk to the attorney. But again, with zoning, you have a chance to rectify your issue. We can't fine you until you basically ignore us for more than 10 days per statute. And wetlands, I'm not sure if this is one where you could do a citation, Jen, on it from a wetlands perspective, due to the culvert, but
I think we could do a citation from wetlands. I mean, this is, it did alter a water course, or it altered, there was a wetland alteration in that it's basically a wetland crossing. It's not a major wetland crossing, but there is a wetland crossing there that was not there. An official constructed wetland crossing that I don't believe was there. I wasn't out there. I wasn't working for the town back in the 90s, so I don't know.
Ken, go ahead.
I don't think this is something we can ignore, given that we have these large tracts of land that the Conservation Commission is monitoring. I would suggest that we simply ignore this, that similar sorts of behavior on other properties that we have conservation easements for could be more egregious than this particular one is. So I think it's a wetlands issue, and I think it needs to be handled that way. It doesn't sound to me like we would readily grant a wetlands permit to build a road through there, had somebody come to us and requested it. Or at least there would have been a public hearing regarding it. So I think it would be a mistake for us to do this.
I'm getting some feedback, but I think, if you look at this, if this were a path, like a walking path, and you wanted to put a wetland crossing, for example, we do these in the parks all the time with like a footbridge. That would be something that you may allow without a public hearing. But I mean, a culverted wetland crossing, it is only an 8-inch pipe, but the bottom line is with a pipe like that, we need to understand if it maintains that hydrologic conductivity with the wetland. So I think we need to look at that. If in a normal application, you may look at that a little bit more critically, I think.
So Ken, what would you suggest would be the remedy at this point?
I would suggest that Mr. Beebe needs to come in and get a wetlands permit.
Okay. All right.
So one of the things here, and this is something Jen and I struggled with, is it's a little bit chicken and egg. So before we have him apply for a wetlands permit, the conservation easement says you can't do this unless the Planning and Zoning Commission authorizes it. So, one way to look at this is to basically say, okay, we're going to authorize this, but it's contingent on you getting a wetlands license. If he doesn't get a wetlands license, then, that has to, then you can say if the wetlands license isn't approved, then, you're looking at removing the culvert. I don't know, Jen, I guess they could also condition it on removing the roadway as well, because without the culvert, then you just have a road going through the conservation easement.
Water only runs through there during the spring for 3 or 4 weeks. And it's just a dribble. Otherwise, you wouldn't even known there was a wetlands there. Because the brook is just about 200 or 300 feet from it.
When we walked through it, what day was that we walked through there? Last Thursday. When we walked through last Thursday, there was no water going through the culvert.
But
it doesn't change anything, Paul.
I know. I'm just, it doesn't change anything. Yeah.
As you know, as your wetlands agent, and you also serve as the wetlands agency, wetlands are in Connecticut are defined by soil type. And so, whether or not it was running or not, it's a field delineated wetland from the subdivision. So there was a soil scientist back there, back in the 90s that identified wetlands. There definitely is clear indication of wetland plants, and that water is there at some point. But again, just because you don't see water doesn't mean there's not a wetland, and because of this, it's defined by soil type.
I agree.
So do we have a consensus to that Mr. Beebe should apply for a wetlands permit? Ken?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
My vote is.
What are you going to gain by that? Tell me. Tell me exactly what we're going to gain by me coming in and getting a wetland permit. I've had the thing on there for 20 years. You know, I work all over the state. I've been in the construction business for over 75 years. The company has. I've been doing it for almost 60. Sometimes little common sense goes a long ways, in my opinion. You know, I work all over, so like, towns everywhere. So that's
John.
funny. I'm sorry to get.
No, well, we appreciate the input, John.
I don't disagree with Mr. Beebe that this problem happened 20 years ago. What we're trying to do is to rectify it that way. If it happens on someone else's easement, they can look back and say, this is how the board just problem.
John, you're breaking up, but I think what you're saying is that we don't want to set a
It was
precedent.
only a cart just for the tractor, but to road mill. That's it.
I think okay. If I understood what John is saying, it's the problem is setting a precedent.
Yeah. Don't set a precedent.
Okay. Anyone else like to chime in on this?
Mr. Chair, just one comment, and again, I would invite Jen to weigh in on this, just from kind of a procedural standpoint. If this, I think if you don't have kind of a formal motion on a retroactive approval subject to getting a wetlands license, I would be a little concerned procedurally that if Mr. Beebe then goes and gets a wetlands license and he comes back, and then we say, oh, no, sorry, we're not going to approve this. So I think we need some indication that if a wetlands license is approved, that basically to give them the retroactive authorization subject to getting that wetlands license, and if the wetlands license is denied, then that culvert and road needs to be removed. Jen, would you agree with that?
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
Okay, so should we do that in the form of a motion?
Why would you want to remove the road?
Well, it's not a question of us wanting to remove the road. It's a question of wanting to, if I understand this correctly, it's a question of wanting to not set a precedent that the thousands of acres that are around Mansfield that are conservation reserve, that you can put a road through without asking permission. Okay, here's a motion. Here's a motion to approve the request, but contingent on receiving a wetlands license. Yeah, I think that seems to be the consensus of the commission at this point, right? John, you're twice. I see you twice. Okay.
I think Jen has a question here, and
okay. You're muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah. I'm just wondering if you are concerned about setting a precedent, would you want to table this and get an opinion from our town attorney regarding his opinion about setting a precedent before? Because right now, if you grant retroactive approval, and then you would have Mr. Beebe come to the wetlands agency to get the wetlands license, someone else may come to you to put a road into a conservation easement, and then I just wonder about the precedents. I don't know. I'm not an attorney, but that's something that you may want our town attorney to weigh in on.
Now that seems like a good idea. Yeah, I see some thumbs up. Okay, let's table it for now, and we'll come back and do it again next time.
And we can also pose the hunting question to the town attorney at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I think we're not trying to be like, I'm hearing that we just need to be careful because you do one thing, you just don't want to make, there's a reason why this commission suggested a conservation easement on these properties, I think. So I want to make sure we're
Not really a road, it's like a path, you know. I mean, I could put topsoil over and put grass on it. It would be the same thing, right? I put some buildings on it so it wouldn't be muddy, so everybody could go through there. It wouldn't be muddy. It wouldn't disturb the soil. I sometimes it's a judgment call. And
Ken?
Well, yeah, my question really, I guess, is to Jen and Linda. Will our town attorney be able to act on this in a timely way so that we're not carrying this out for another month?
Well, we will ask him, but this road has been there for many years, so we will ask him.
We have a very long list for the town attorney. I can't tell you that this is going to be the top of it. But we do have a meeting coming up this week. So I just made some changes before this meeting, so I'll make another adjustment and add this in as a question.
Okay, we'll table it for now. Thank you, Mr. Beebe.
thank you for everything.
Okay.
We'll hope for the best.
Right. Okay, now we can do the drive-through services.
Yes. So going back, so we are on item C now of old business. And as I started to say, we have had a request, and Jolene and I talked this through, and we kind of said, well, we know where we end up, but, you know, let's ask the commission on this. So the question is, if you have a drive-up pickup window, so there's no way to order there's no ordering speaker, menu, anything of that nature. You have to order in advance. So from your cell phone, from your home computer, from your tablet, by picking up a phone and calling. And then when you arrive, you're just going to pick it up at a window instead of walking into the restaurant. And, you know, so the question is, does that constitute a drive-through service? So our regulations for all restaurants in all districts where we allow them essentially say that, and I want to pull the exact language for you, and I'll just do that from the Plan Business 1, is under restaurants, there shall be no drive-through food service. And so that is cited in every district where we allow restaurants, or there is if it's not specific, it actually refers you back literally to the Plan Business 1. So we do it two different ways. We either say it again, or we say, see the rules for the Plan Business 1 district. And so we've had a request from a restaurant in the Plan Business 1 that would like to add a pickup window. And, you know, their argument is, no, we're not a drive-through because you can't stop and order and then proceed and pick it up. We're just a pickup window, therefore we're not a drive-through, because they're not what I would say is what people traditionally think of as a drive-through service, being a McDonald's, a Wendy's, where you have kind of from start to finish, you're placing your order and you're paying and you're receiving your food. In this case, you're literally just picking it up. I have no idea whether there's payment at that point involved. We didn't get that far into the discussion. So we did indicate that we would ask the commission for, you know, basically an interpretation of whether drive-through service included this pickup window concept.
Now, when this issue first came up, Vera was temporarily gone, and I was thinking, I wish Vera were here because I'm sure she has an opinion on it. So I'm going to ask Vera that I was missing.
Well, I vaguely remember when this edict went through about drive-throughs, and I think the concern was litter and traffic. And a drive-through is a drive-through. I don't care whether you order at the microphone a tenth of a mile away or whatever. It's a drive-through. My feeling is it's a drive-through.
I knew you were going to say that.
So I accommodated it.
I have the same opinion. You know, if somebody is driving through and doing whatever, you know, it is a drive-through. You know, if you're walking to a window and picking it up, that is not a drive-through. But if you're sitting in an automobile and picking something up, the reason for that drive-through, whatever rules, is to make sure things are safe. And if you're paying money, not paying money, that doesn't. I feel it is a drive.
So one thing I do think we need to address, regardless of which way you go on this, is what I'm going to call the curbside pickup option, because I think, as we all know, over the past year, that has become a very popular option. I do think that there's a difference between pulling into a designated space and having someone that works in the restaurant walk your food out to your vehicle. At that point, you're parking. You know, that as opposed to a drive-through where you're in a designated lane and moving. I do think we should probably just clarify that does not count as a drive-through service, whichever way you go on this, because I don't think that option is going anywhere. I think there are restaurants that offered it before the pandemic, like Applebee's, and I think you're going to see more and more that will probably keep that, you know, keep that as an option for convenience.
That's a good point. Dorianne?
I agree. Curbside and drive-through is two different things, because you're parking your car and you're having somebody bring the food to you. Where a drive-through, it doesn't matter if you already put your order in or not. You're still driving through. It's still a drive-through.
Barrett?
I agree. I think curbside is a different story, and I would think that that's a good way to handle it.
Okay. So parking, go ahead, Carlita.
I'm having a hard time differentiating because if you're looking at a model like Applebee's where you park and they bring the food out to you, or if you're driving around and they hand the food to you, if the issue is littering, it can occur in either mode. So if that's the only thing that's holding it back, especially given that, you know, during the pandemic, for many restaurant owners, this was the only way they could stay in business and get a little bit of business, was to have people drive around, and because, you know, we were contactless and so forth. And, you know, that could come up again. So I guess I'm speaking in support of allowing that action. I would need to know more. I'd need to have more research about littering versus non-littering in that case.
Bino?
I think that whole thing, we had decided at one point to look at our regulations and consider drive-throughs as a permitted activity or something in these zones. That is separate from this particular request. I guess this particular request is asking us to interpret if these, drive through to hand over food is a drive-through action. So we are just interpreting if that particular motion is a drive-through motion, and that way I think it is a drive-through motion. But to Carlita's point, it is also important that we as a commission look into whether we should approve or permit drive-through activity in these, zones, and that's a total separate issue, I believe, right? It's something committee needs to look into, and that should be done as a totally separate assignment.
I did say that it was partially a fear of littering and whatever, but the traffic that is generated by a drive-through, which is very popular, I have to agree that that's an often used way. It's going through other parking lots for that restaurant. It's a continual motion of cars going from one end to the other. I just think it's risky to do it that way. And we have more requests coming up, and we have one request coming up that has 2 drive-ins requested. So be careful what you wish for here.
They could multiply. Go ahead, Linda.
So I just wanted to say, so we told this particular restaurant we would ask the question for an interpretation purpose. And I think to Banu's point, the other thing I would point out is that whatever interpretation you make is for every district in which this is allowed. And so, that's looking at that, which is something that I had advised them that I had some concerns about, because that's kind of a long-reaching decision. It's not just their particular restaurant. The other piece, we did let them know that there is an applicant who is intending on pursuing an amendment to the district they're in regarding drive-throughs. And so that, should the commission decide that no, a pickup window is a drive-through service, you cannot do it, there is a potential other amendment that may be coming forward.
So that might be, I think it's pretty clear that the regulations as they're now written do not permit this. So I think it would be probably good to uphold that, but perhaps study it, or when this other request comes in, we could study it further.
And you can ask the regulatory review committee to take a look at this as well. As I said, I do believe there is an applicant working on it, but there's nothing preventing the commission from looking at it as well through the regulatory review process.
We have to write good regulations so that we're not scratching our head later on. Okay, here's a motion.
I'll be happy to read it.
Okay, go ahead.
I, Vera Ward, move to interpret the term, quote, drive-through service, unquote, as including any service, including drive-up, pickup windows that is designed to allow customers to remain in their vehicle while following a pre-designated route to obtain service. The term shall not include use of designated parking spaces for pickup services where the customer's vehicle remains parked and stationary while waiting for purchased items to be delivered to their vehicle.
Moved by Ward, second by Ron. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, raise your hand. Okay.
Aye.
John, I think did you vote aye, John?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Might be looking at the wrong picture. Okay, it looks like it's unanimous. Okay. All right.
All right. So the next item, and I will apologize, we had a lot going on Friday, so I had accidentally left a hold that I had put under new business. Actually, what I should note, Mr. Chair, is that items E, F, G, and H are all tabled under old business, pending public hearing.
Right. So now we can do
Yes, yeah. New business, I apologize. You'll see a hold for a text amendment because that was something that we use as a holding pattern, and I forgot to delete that before we published and didn't notice it before we did that. So there is no A. You did add 2 items at the beginning of the meeting. The first item is item B under new business, which is the affordable housing plan. And I know that we have Ken and Sarah and Katie. Did we lose Katie? Oh, no, Katie's there. Okay, sorry. I'm going to change my view. I have a lot of unactive cameras, so it's making it hard for me to see. So Katie's here. So Ken, Katie, and Sarah are all on the ad hoc committee on affordable and workforce housing. which has been working over the last several months to develop an affordable housing plan for the town as required by state statute. And last week, they recommended that we send the draft plan out for public comment. And the town council has, we asked them to set a public hearing date of June 23rd, which I believe is a Wednesday, Jennifer, at 7 p.m. And we would like that to be a joint meeting of the town council and planning and zoning commission. Or if not a joint meeting, I will say a one where, one invites the other, just so we have you all in the same place listening to testimony at the same time and the presentation of the plan. And so I do have a motion just to concur with that public hearing date, if that works for everyone. And we'll hopefully move this forward. And then if anyone has, again, we will also send out a link to the plan to everyone in advance of the meeting so that you can read the draft plan. And there will be a survey going out to everyone, all residents. Same thing, same mailer, type of mailer you received before, different color scheme, and a new survey asking for feedback on the strategies that are proposed.
So is there a motion for that?
There is.
Okay.
Oh, it looks like Vera has a question.
Isn't the draft done now? I mean, is that something you get sooner rather than later?
Yes, I can email you a link tomorrow. So it's actually going up on the website tomorrow. I was just going to the town clerk. I was just waiting for your concurrence with the public hearing date so that we have that and can send it out to everybody.
Well, I'd be glad to. I, Ward, move to concur with the proposed public hearing date of June 23rd, 2021 at 7 p.m. on the draft affordable housing plan as set by the town council at their May 10th. Is that what you said? Oh.
Yeah, it was that. They said it at their May 10th meeting.
At their May 10th, 2021 meeting.
Moved by Ward.
I'll second for Tony.
Second by for Tony. All in favor?
DeVivo, 4.
Okay, very good. All in favor. Linda, that's rare for us to have a joint meeting with the town council, right?
I don't know that we've ever done it, so this may be a first.
I've never done it. Yeah, that should be interesting.
But this is something that, again, when you see the plan, and I think Ken and Katie and Sarah can attest to this, when you're dealing with affordable housing, there are really recommendations in this plan, some of which fall under your jurisdiction as the Planning and Zoning Commission, and some which fall under the council's jurisdiction. And we thought it was important, since you are the two main bodies that are going to be responsible for this, to kind of have that opportunity to hear the comments jointly. Obviously, you'll have to take separate actions in endorsing the plan. And one thing you'll see in the draft is that we do recommend that there be a formal amendment to the Plan of Conservation and Development to add it as an appendix so that it becomes a part of the formal review for consistency with the POCD.
You could almost call this a summit meeting.
Well, I don't know about that. We're going to, it's a limited agenda. So,
well, at least we won't have to sit in the back.
That's right.
Well, interestingly, I don't know where we're going to be June 23rd, and we're going to have to figure out, if it's in person, how to fit you all wherever we're going to have this hearing. So that'll be the next logistical question.
Okay, and we have another motion as well?
We have another item for interpretation, yes.
Okay.
So the second item honestly came up today, and so I'm going to share my screen. I'm still sharing my screen. So in reviewing a zoning permit today, we have a request to add a deck to a single-family house, which on its face seems pretty straightforward, and looked at the setbacks, they look good. And then I realized it's in a planned business zone, and we don't allow single-family houses in planned business zones. And so looking at our non-conforming use section, in this case, it's a non-conforming use. It's not a non-conforming structure. And our non-conforming regulations state that an existing residential non-conforming use in associated buildings, and I will say that this is specifically, the language specifically excludes mobile homes and trailers and multifamily dwellings, which are handled in other non-conforming provisions. But the buildings, the use and associated buildings, structures, or site improvements may be extended or enlarged, provided special exception approval is granted by the Zoning Board of Appeals. In reviewing a request for special exception, the Zoning Board of Appeals has to determine that the extension or enlargement will not adversely affect the character or property values of neighboring properties or the general health, welfare, and safety of the town, that the applicant provides evidence of general neighborhood opinion of the proposal, and that the extension or enlargement is in conformance with our flood hazard requirements. And in looking at this, you know, my question kind of became, yes, it's an extension or an addition to the house, but does the addition of a deck constitute an expansion or enlargement of the non-conforming use and therefore require a special exception from the Zoning Board of Appeals? That is the question.
Is this like a huge deck or?
I honestly, I can't remember. It was just, again, it just struck me because I looked at the zoning district and went, oh my goodness, that, you know, that single family home, they want to add a deck. You know, it's that time of year. We're getting a lot of deck and pool permits right now. And by virtue of the fact that they're in a commercial district, they may need to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. But since it's not, I think if it were an enclosed addition, that would have been much clearer to me that yes, there's really no option here. You're really increasing the square footage. Because it was a deck, and quite frankly, because you were meeting tonight, I was like, well, this is a question that I can pose to you and, you know, see if more minds are better than one at this point.
Well, my opinion is that the deck is fine. Ken, do you have an opinion?
No, the deck is fine. I think to send them to ZBA would be a poor use of everyone's time.
No. Abinu?
Yeah, I have to agree, and maybe only because the deck is behind, right? So it's kind of not affecting the neighboring properties. That is why I would say this is fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Because in the front, I would have maybe, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so do we need a motion? Oh, there it is.
Yes. So at the top motion here, I'm going to delete the second one, which is based on what I'm hearing, a deck does not constitute an expansion that requires an expansion of the use that requires a ZBA special exception.
Is this exception only because it's on the back? I mean,
right now it's just I have it because it's a deck. I mean, if you want to add, you know, a deck onto the rear of a single family dwelling, we can do that.
I mean, we have to be careful. We are going to be so inundated with all these requests, and it seems to me we don't think ahead as to what it means down the road, or we don't have the option. We don't have the opportunity to really review it. So, and we just grant them willy-nilly. So I just think we ought to say because it's on the back and doesn't affect the neighborhood.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Yeah, let's put it on the back. Yes, Katie.
My opinion is that a porch is in the front, a deck is in the back. Mm-hmm. Not too many houses have a deck in the front. So that, and a porch in the front, that would be how you looked at the place. Because I'm looking at it, if it's a single-use family, it's grandfathered for being there, that it was there before we changed the zoning area. But I think, yes, make that differentiate between that a porch is on the front, a deck would be on the back.
Okay. Okay, would someone like to put that forward?
I'll put it forward, Paul.
Okay.
Ken Ron moved to determine that the addition of a deck onto the rear facade of a single-family dwelling, which is non-conforming as to the permitted use with location in a planned business district, is not considered to be an extension or enlargement of the non-conforming use, and therefore a special exemption from the Zoning Board of Appeals is not required.
Moved by Ron.
I'll second. Ward.
Second by Ward. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay. And John, you're saying yes? I can't see you.
Yes, John is DeVivo, yes.
Okay. Very good.
No camera.
Passes unanimously.
All right. So that is it for new business, Mr. Chair.
Okay. In your packet, there's a section on desegregate Connecticut.
I did send an email out to the commission this morning that apparently there is a bill that appears to be moving towards a floor vote. I have no idea what the final contents of that bill will be. I got the impression from Sarah Bronin that the content of that bill may be very different from what you reviewed and commented on, or at least in some aspects. So we'll have to see what comes out. But
I think it's going to be slightly watered down, which is not necessarily bad.
So, and they did say that they had a very successful event last weekend. I think I had passed on the invitation to the commission. I think it was in Norwich or New London, maybe. I know they had actually specifically reached out to us and asked if anyone could come. Unfortunately, I did let them know that with UConn celebrating 2020 graduations last weekend, I was tied up with family obligations, but I don't know if anyone from the commission was able to attend. They had about 100 people, though, so I think that.
Linda?
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Ken.
What I'm asking is, we've been working at conditions involving affordable housing, which I think is rather imminently tied up with the desegregate Connecticut. As far as you know, are we kind of walking along in a parallel, constructive way with this bill, or do we know so little about it that we really can't answer that?
I'll have to go back and see if I can find a revised version. We reviewed the one that was in committee for the public hearing. So, okay. What my very limited understanding of the General Assembly is that a lot of changes can happen between the public hearing and what actually gets put to a floor vote. I think generally speaking, we were aligned. The one thing that was in that I remember from the legislation where I think we might have not been aligned was on the fee in lieu for affordable housing. I believe the original bill basically said, you need to do inclusionary zoning and you can't provide that fee in lieu option for the minimum requirements. I'm doing that from memory. I'm not sure that's exactly what it said. So that's, we currently allow it on a case-by-case basis. And I think it is, Ken, as you and the other members of the ad hoc committee are aware, some of the discussion and the recommendations coming out of the plan are looking at ways to fund the housing trust fund. And should we look at a different way besides the fee in lieu through zoning and actually explore some other ways to finance a housing trust fund?
Paul, just take this a little bit further with regard to affordable. I think Sarah and Katie would bear this out. Should we adopt this plan, I think it is going to mean that we're going to need to review some of the things, some of the work that we've already done, and make some adjustments. I don't think I'm prepared to talk about that now until we actually have the public hearing and go through with it. But if the plan were to go through as it's been proposed, it would, I think, require some adjustments on our part. Right.
Yes, it would. And that's why we have both you and the council involved, because there are recommendations in that plan that would be left to you as the commission to deal with through zoning, as well as ones that would be left to the council.
Okay. If we don't have any other business, we're done. At 7:37.
But it looks like we're going to see each other often over the next 5-6 weeks.
Right.
Stay juicy with everybody.
See you soon.
You have a busy summer.
Okay, great.
Have a nice evening, everyone.
Yeah, you too.
Bye.
Have a nice evening, everyone.
This conference is no longer being recorded.